Lisa Joya, and this is Backward Glances. Today, my guest is Giovanna Maria Bongiorno, better known as Joann Bon, and famous as Joann Bon and the Coquettes. This is my first meeting with Joann, but we've spoken on the phone on several occasions, and from our very first conversation, I felt a kinship with her, and so wish I'd met her years before. The universe, however, has seen fit to bring us together today. I'm excited to share with our viewers the amazing career she has had. Despite fighting off a nasty bout of congestion, she has persevered to be with us today. So let's get started and learn about today's guest. Welcome, Joann.
Thank you, Lisa.
How are you today? Thank you so much for bringing yourself out on this cold, blustery day.
I'm overwhelmed, I'm honored, and I'm happy.
I'm so glad. I love to hear about our guest's early beginnings. So could you please tell us where you were born and raised?
Yes. I'll start from the beginning. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. My dad was an immigrant. He was a stowaway.
Oh, interesting.
He came to this country on a ship called it was the Rex. And he stayed in the cargo area 2 weeks with bread and water.
And where did he originate from?
He originated from a small town called WWDBTV.com, Provincia di Trapani.
I think you speak Italian, don't you?
I learned as a child. And once my dad got here, he was associated with certain people, and they brought him to Cleveland, Ohio. And shortly after being here, he met my mother, and she was 16 at the time.
American?
Yes.
Okay.
But of also Sicilian ancestry. And when he met my mother and they got married, my father turned himself in to the American consulate at that time. They deported him back to Sicily. And he told me what a struggle it was to come back to this country legally. And he did. He came back legally and became what they call a naturalized citizen at that time.
Mm-hmm. And did you mention where this was in the United States? Where?
In Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
And further on, as I got older, of course, the war broke out, World War II. And I was born in 1936.
Okay.
And I remember some of that, even as a child. After the war, in 1947, my dad sent my mother and I back to Sicily, as I had never met my grandparents. And I lived there. I lived in the countryside for almost a year, and we came back. My mother left before I did. And
oh, wow.
I learned to speak. Believe it or not, I learned to read and write in Italian. And I was going to school in Cleveland, and I would write back to my teachers, and because of what I had done and all the writings I had sent back to them of my experiences going to Pompeii, and just various things like that, I skipped the 6th grade.
Wow.
I know, but I shouldn't have.
Oh.
It was a hard thing because I didn't have phonics.
Okay.
And in Italian, it's very easy for me, but English was difficult.
So what age were you when you came back to Cleveland?
I was 11 when I went, maybe 12 at that time. And the wonderful part of how I got into music, I'd like to share that with you.
Well, yeah, because we're going to talk a lot about your music career.
When I lived in Sicily, now, before that, let me preface this. We were not wealthy, but being an only child, my dad made sure that I had the Schwinn bike, and my mother made sure that I had beautiful white high-top shoes. And I would, needless to say, probably spoiled, the firstborn in an Italian family. Great-grandmother had 6 children when she came here. At the same time, my grandmother was having children. Okay. They all got married very early in life. She was the firstborn, and then I became the firstborn after that 3rd generation. So going back to Sicily, we carried these steamer trunks, and we were told that the food may not be as readily there as it is here. Even if we had money to buy the food, there wasn't anything available. So believe it or not, some of my meals were things like bread and olive oil and some cheeses maybe.
Did you ever feel deprived?
No,
Okay.
I didn't. It was a very happy time.
Okay.
In the town called WWDBTV.com, we did not have running water. We would bathe from the water that we got from the well, which was in the center of the town. And that water then was thrown into a gutter in front of the houses that ran down the each side of the street. And it was just really one street. I know. And because I was the youngest, I went with my mother and my Aunt Didi and my cousin Adeline. But out of those, I was the youngest. So I was designated every morning to get up and go fetch the water from the well. Well, if you've ever fetched water from the well, you know how heavy it is. In the steamer trunks that my mother and my aunt took there, they carried chocolate, abundance of that, abundance of cigarettes, and abundance of nylons.
To trade
Yes.
for food.
Yes. So I learned very early. Now, in the meantime, I'm carrying all this water, buckets of water from the well. It wasn't that far, but it was far enough. And I would get up each morning and go do that. Well, across from this particular well stood this guard. He was called a carabiniere. Try it. Say. And he
I
would,
know what he does.
yes. So he would watch me every morning, and he would smoke that cigarette and smoke that cigarette. And I thought, So, unbeknownst to my mother and my aunt, I went into the trunk, and from their pack of cigarettes every day, I would take a cigarette.
Smart girl.
I was thinking, well, you learn very quickly. And I went to the carabiniere and I said to him, look, I'll give you a cigarette every day. Can you carry the water? Oh, no problem. He was carrying that water. My grandmother and grandfather, the family could not, how did this man change? What's making him do this? You know, they were always, and we got all the water we want.
Oh, that's great.
And till I got caught.
Oh.
But then they started to do it.
Okay.
But you learn fast. And the one thing I loved so much was being with my grandparents. My grandfather came here in the 1800s. And he went back to Italy and he bought land. And as a child, he showed me all that land. Have you ever stood on a mountaintop, Blisa,
Well, yes, I have.
and you watched the grain wave, just like a
Oh, you have such memories, don't you? Still.
Oh, my.
How many times have you been back to Sicily?
maybe 6 or 7.
Okay, so you returned, and it meant that much to me. That's wonderful.
did.
So you made a comment about your music started when you were in Sicily. Your love of music started there.
Well, it did. May I? Excuse me.
Absolutely.
We had no means of entertainment by then. I mean, there weren't any ice rinks, and we didn't have any movie theaters and things of that sort.
You mentioned that in Sicily, that became where you had your love of music begin.
I did. Entertainment there weren't the forms that I knew here, like going to the movie theater or the ice rinks or sledding, anything of that. That was not feasible. There was nothing. But each night, the townspeople would gather in the center of the town, right in front of the postal service, the post office, and a lady would tell stories to us children. all sorts of stories, scary ones. And then an elderly gentleman would bring out his guitar, and the other one would bring out the accordion. Everybody would sing. That was a form of entertainment.
Okay.
And there was such a camaraderie there, such love, that I fell in love with the music, with playing and hearing and hear the people sing. That just was part of my life. And I begged my mother, I said, please tell Daddy, I want an accordion? She says, no way. You'll do what you did with the tap and ballet. I said, I didn't want to do ballet. I didn't want tap. I want the accordion. So she wrote to my father. My father always said yes to me. Okay. And I got the accordion. And it was in a crate. I carried it all over in that crate. Didn't let anyone touch it or anything.
Was this in Sicily?
This was still in Sicily. So but he wasn't in Sicily.
Right, so he had it shipped over to Sicily. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they bought the accordion itself in Palermo, which was in Sicily.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway,
that's wonderful.
That was the beginning.
I didn't ask you, what is your father's and your mother's name? My
father's name is Gaetano. My mother's name was Maria.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody, I think all the Italians, their middle name, it's just like mine. It's Giovannina Maria.
Oh, yes.
There's always Mary in there. Something. I have something for you.
Okay.
Okay. I know that you are a historian, and you mentioned to me, Lisa, that you would continue that you felt like you belonged when you went to Italy.
Oh, absolutely. I've been twice. Okay. I've been fortunate to be there twice now. Sicily, because my family came from a little town called Valledomo, which is in the central part of Sicily. Okay. And I was just there in September, and so I got to meet some distant relatives. But we'll how about we talk about that a little bit later?
Wait.
Oh, my goodness, what? Oh.
These are artifacts that I was given when I was 11 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And you may wonder, I just know you'll do well. They would take cotton. This is how we made yarn. And you put cotton on here, all right? They thread it down easy, and you see this groove?
Yes.
You put the yarn right in that groove. You hold this, because you have now the string running, and you take this, swirl it on your arm, and it makes the yarn.
Wow.
I would like you to have it.
I would love that. Thank you so much. You'll show me how to try to do it. Do you know how to use this?
Oh, I've forgotten. I was taught how to use it.
What are these called? Do you know?
I do not.
I'll look this up. As a historian, I'll find out.
Thank
you so much.
You're more than welcome.
What I want to know is how. So you're in Sicily. You get an accordion. Are you a good singer? And how do you know that you want to go into music as a career?
I don't know that I was a good singer. I mean, there were many people much better than I was, but I just love singing.
Okay.
And I just wanted to play the accordion.
All right, so you're in Sicily, and then you come back to Cleveland, and I know that you did have a career in music, so let's talk a little bit about that.
I started accordion lessons.
Okay.
And then I continued. I had my own band when I was 13 years old.
Oh, my God. A garage band?
Yeah. We were called Honey Toppers.
The Honey
Toppers.
Honey Toppers, okay.
I don't know where I got that.
Okay.
And we would play for weddings and VFWs. And my dad, there were... they call it like showboat, and that means they would go to schoolyards, and they'd have various acts, tap dancers, things of that sort, singers. Well, I would take my accordion, and wherever they sent me, my dad would take me, and I would perform. And I loved it. I loved the applause, and I was doing what I wanted to do.
Were you getting paid?
No.
Did Mom and Dad fully support you?
Yes.
Were they proud of you and the work you were doing?
I never really knew that because my dad used to tell my mom, don't brag, it's not the thing to do.
Okay.
So, excuse me.
So how did a music career get started where you became Joann Bon and the Coquettes?
As I said, I had entered every contest I could. And they had a contest. It was sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Oh.
And
is that what this is?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, the Coca-Cola and the Department of Defense.
Oh.
That's how we got our name, Coquettes. It was spelled Cokettes.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And I won the contest, but not with the band, by myself. I used to do comedy. Well, it was a song called Josephina, Please No Lena on the Bell. Winnie, you musha, please no pusha on the bell. And they bought it. So I went for Cleveland. And there were other performers from Atlanta, Georgia, Detroit, Philadelphia, anywhere that Coca-Cola had a major bottling company. So I was very fortunate. And when I say that, I mean to thank my parents. Because being raised in an Italian family and their traditions, you're 16 years old, the thing to do is to either get a good job with a pension or get married. How my mother and father, and even my cousins today, ask me, how did your mother and father ever let you go?
Right, because usually you would be there to take care of mom and dad.
Exactly. Now, like at 17, 16 years old, I am traveling with Coca-Cola, a troupe, all through Asia, all through Europe, North Africa. I did that for 4 years.
This is by yourself without your band?
Well, the first year by myself without the band. And we had a director. His name was Pete Zollner. He was in counterintelligence during the war. And before we left, they taught us everything with that, like what they call unarmed defense. So should we be in North Africa in a situation, we would be able to take care of ourselves.
Okay.
And so
you mentioned about the Department of the Defense.
Yeah.
What is this right here?
That's what that is. That's a certificate. So is this. I brought.
So,
if you can see it.
Okay. It says the Department of Defense presents a certificate of esteem, patriotic service in providing entertainment to members of the armed forces in Europe, 1954 to 1955.
And this was one that was given to me. I'm very proud of this, from the Far East Command.
Wow, okay. In appreciation for entertaining armed forces personnel, June, July 1956. Wow, Joann. How much pride you must have in this.
I did it, but we did get a per diem. We got so much a day. I remember it was $7.50 that we would get each day. But we were escorted. I never had to worry about anything.
Yeah, you never worried. You were a young woman.
We were paid. All our food and shelter was taken care of. And I had a wonderful life. I didn't realize at the time how blessed I was.
All right, but I mean, you're surrounded by men in uniform.
Yes.
Was there any temptation there?
Well,
did you meet anybody?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
But our director was very strict with us. Given an example, when I got to Japan, I had heard about the Japanese and the steam baths, and I thought to myself, I'm only here once. I'd like to try to go. And we were told that certain things were off limits to us, and that was one of them. But myself and 3 of the other girls, we went. When we got back to the hotel, our director had a meeting, and I knew the moment he said at the meeting, Bongiorno, that's all he had to say. I knew why I was in for it. He said, you disobeyed and so forth. Yeah, I'm going to have to send you back.
Oh.
I said, what am I going to do? You know. Anyway, the other 3 girls stood up and said, no, you have to send us back also if you send her. We went with her. Well, he knew that, but he knew I was the instigator, so.
Okay. So did you get sent back?
No,
Okay.
because it would have totally broken up the entire show.
You got lucky.
They called me and said, I'm going to give you another chance.
Okay.
So what did he do then? He put me, the troop was like 21, and he put me in charge of 5 other people on that tour. You're to watch them, and you're to report back to me if they do anything that they shouldn't. And I learned. I never did it again.
Okay, so now take us back to that part of your life is not over, but now you're moving on. Are you back in the United States?
Yes, and we would then play again, as I said, for VFWs and polkas.
Now, are we
dances.
still the Honey Toppers?
No,
Okay.
we were then because we were with Coca-Cola.
So now you're the Coquettes, okay.
That's correct, the Department of Defense.
Now, one of the things when I was looking you up, I came across a video of you and the other Coquettes on the Ed Sullivan Show. How did that come about?
Wow. We went back to Cleveland. Well, that happened when we left the tour. Everything disbanded. And we could not keep the name Coquettes as it was spelled. So what we did is we changed the name to COQUETTES. And we had a manager in Cleveland, Ohio, heard us. His name was Marty Kahn. He handled many big people. And he cut a record.
Okay.
And at that time it was called a dub.
Okay.
A dub.
Okay, got it.
And what happened, we were in Cumberland, Maryland. He would book us various cities, Toledo, Ohio, Cumberland, Maryland, things of that sort. And we would perform there for a week or two. And he called me and he said, Joann, Mitch Miller wants you in New York. I said, Marty, don't be funny. He says, I played your record and Mitch Miller wants you in New York.
And who is Mitch Miller?
Mitch Miller was the head of Columbia Records at that time.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that was big. So I just was all excited, and I said, okay. So we go to New York by ourselves, and we find the studio, and Mitch Miller is there, and I thought, wow. And he says to me, Joann, how would you like Ray Conniff to do your arrangements? Well, I was a kid from Cleveland. I really didn't know who Ray Conniff was. He was one of the biggest arrangers. Okay. And I looked at him. He says, I think you'd like him. I said, I guess that's okay. So next thing we know, we're in the studio with Ray Conniff, and we cut a song that I arranged called The Music Goes Round and Round. No, that's not the one. Okay. They were singles. We didn't do the album.
Oh, I see.
Later.
Okay, the albums were later. Well, talk about how you got to Ed Sullivan.
Well, that was part of the promo.
Okay.
Okay. Mitch Miller had arranged that.
Okay.
And that's how we got on the Ed Sullivan Show. And that was like being on American Idol today.
Well, we happen to have a clip of Joann Bon and the Coquettes. And so if you would, we're going to turn back and we're going to take a look. No, we're going to take a look.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
You'll thrill to the new maneuverability of the big Mercury. Drive it at your Mercury dealers this week. Mercury, the new performance champion for 1958.
Well, it really should be because, well, for instance, on our show in 1958, our show represents everything that we've learned since we started in 1948. And I'm sure that the same thing applies to your business, because experience is the greatest teacher. Well, since 1948, when our show first started telling you about Mercury, 2.5 million have bought them. So this stunning line of 58 Mercuries represents every bit of engineering and styling savvy learned in the production of millions of Mercuries that have preceded them. Now, starting tomorrow morning as a guest of our show, I ask you to drop in at any Mercury showroom in the country and treat yourself to a 10-minute test drive in the new performance champion of the year, Mercury. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these 4 attractive youngsters here, these are the Coquettes, and they're going to sing an oldie for you. Girls, go round and round.
Music once more, listen to the jazz. Come out, I push the other belt down. The music goes round and round, oh, and it comes out here. Yakadoo, randoo, randoo, yakadoo, randoo,
That is fantastic. Wow.
That does bring back memories.
Oh, wow, I bet
Because
it does.
from there we went on to Philadelphia and did the American Bandstand Dick Clark show.
Oh, my goodness. So,
and that was really big.
again, in my introduction, I said the famous Joann Bond and the Coquettes. So you also told me when we spoke on the phone something about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What's that? What's going on with that?
Well, we're not sure yet, but there was a woman, Charlene Duncan, and she has Chalmer Productions, and she knew of us. And she came here and she filmed and did a lot of research. She did a wonderful. I was just overwhelmed, taken by what this woman had done. Excuse me. A whole video on us.
Oh,
Where she got some of this material, I have no idea. And she turned it in just recently to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to try to get us nominated. I'll be honest, I didn't have much hopes because of the fact that, it was something that you said.
what?
I watched. You mentioned showgirls.
Mm-hmm.
And during that period of time, when we came to Las Vegas, Nevada, after we did the Copa and Dick Clark show and etc., our first engagement was with Jack and Trotta, who had the Copa, and we came to the Sands Hotel.
And what year was that?
1958.
Okay.
And there's something I always felt, Lisa, that the lounges were the foundation of the entertainment here. There were many acts that were record acts, and they would come and they did a wonderful job. Don't misunderstand me, but like say Sammy Davis Jr. Well, he was in the showrooms. Okay, you had the McGuire sisters. They were in the showrooms.
That was the heyday of Las Vegas, wasn't
Exactly.
it?
But the lounges were people really, really patronized.
And is that where you performed?
Exactly.
In the lounges? Okay.
Exactly. I wish that we had had a hit record that would have just sprung us into that area, but
Okay.
it just didn't happen. And
One of the questions I do have, Joann, is that how were you received by the audiences? Did they love you?
oh gosh, my first experience was at the Sands Hotel. And I really didn't know. And we worked with Jackie and Roy Kral and Red and Overall. They were jazz. We were not jazz.
Okay.
Okay. But the audience was tremendous with us. I mean, they applauded and really accepted us. And I whispered to one of the other girls in the group, I says, I think we made it.
Oh, good.
No. Only to find out Sinatra had come into the lounge and everybody was giving us these polite applause.
Oh, you thought it was...
I thought it was for me. Anyway, we went back.
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
Right, and we did what they call woodshedding, and we perfected the art of becoming entertainers. We learned from old vaudevillians as if you're going to take your bow, by the sound of the audience, do I take it here? Do I go off stage? When do I stop?
You
So
learned
that I
everything.
could get them to applaud more, or albeit. And we worked very hard at it. We were pioneers here as far as an all-girl group, because not only were we vocal, that's what Mitch Miller bought us, was vocal, but we were instrumental. By the time we were through, we started out at 4, we ended up 8.
Oh.
Played 21 different instruments. Our shows were a gamut of emotion. We would start with maybe something really up, a long train running, but we also made you laugh. We made you cry. We brought you in.
Can you give us an example of
Yes,
one of
I
yours?
can.
Please, I'd love to hear something.
All right. This is a true story. We met a man, his name was Russ Morgan. Russ was a band leader. He wrote many, many songs, Does Your Heart Beat for Me? And we were playing Reno, Nevada, and we were doing Does Your Heart Beat for Me? This man jumps on the stage. I didn't know who he was. It was Russ Morgan. He said, I've never heard anybody do my song the way you're doing it.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Do it for me.
Oh, I can't.
Oh, come on. Just
Well, I'll tell you, but I will share this with you. And he gave all of us a silver dollar with a medallion on, and I still have that. And we became very good friends. His son, who worked with the group, Jack, and his wife, Shirley Morgan, who did much in Las Vegas for the Jewish Hadassah League, whatever. And I said to him, Russ, tell me something. He wrote a song called You're Nobody Till Somebody Loves You. And he said, Joann, you know, I got tuberculosis. I'm working in Pennsylvania, and I was playing piano at the time. In order to build my lungs up, I took trombone. He said this man would come in every evening, and he'd sit in the front row by himself. He was always alone. And he'd have one drink and another drink and another drink. He stayed all night, and by closing time, he was well on his way to being carried out. So one day Russ walked up to him and he said, you know, you look like a really nice guy. He said, what makes you drink the way you do? And the man looked up at Russ and he said, you know, Mr. Morgan, you're nobody till somebody loves you. Russ went home that night and wrote that song.
Yeah.
And what we learned, Lisa, before we did a song, we introduced the song. We would tell the audience, this is how the song is written.
That's beautiful.
And there's many, many more. It was like Judy Garland. You want to do Judy Garland? There's one Judy Garland.
Yeah.
Everything else is a copy.
Yeah.
How do you do Somewhere Over the Rainbow as a female and not be compared to Judy Garland? You tell the story.
Beautiful. And that's what I love. I love the stories. I love the stories. Let's move on. And so you've moved to Las Vegas in 1958, and you've stayed here. And when did you stop performing with your group, or have you continued to perform?
Well, I don't think once you're a performer, always a performer. I stopped really, when I want to say, doing all the lounges, the major hotels. We did almost every one of them. The Riviera, Sands, name it. It was when Ruthie, who did all our arrangements, her name was Ruth Ross, her father marched with John Philip Sousa. And Ruthie had an ear that was incredible. She could hear a bad note in a symphony. Never had any lessons. She was just God's gift and natural. And Ruth and I were the ones that would do all the arrangements because we'd sit together and I'd say, we have to do this different. Somebody did it in, 4/4. We're going to do it in 3/4 time. And it was when Ruth got cancer.
And do you remember the year?
I sure do. 1987 when you came here.
Yeah. Wow. You remember a little bit of my story, don't you?
I remember all of it.
Hey, I need to ask you, in between all this entertainment and traveling, did you have a personal life? Did you get married? Did you have children?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't want to.
Okay.
To be honest, I just love what I was doing, and if it got too involved, it took, we do the circuit. Like we'd go from Elko to Reno back to Vegas. It
wasn't conducive to having that kind of a life.
No.
Were your parents disappointed?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Being Italian. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
That was their biggest disappointment.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
know.
All right. So after you stopped performing and doing music, I'm sure it still played a part in your life. What did you do afterwards?
I still stayed in music.
Okay.
I went to work for John Kish. He owned Skyline Casino. What was happening, Ruth still had not totally, it was just before that. And she still wanted to work a little, although she had cancer. So I found a smaller casino, not on the Strip. And just four of us got together and we worked the weekends. And we held the record there as far as the bar take was concerned. But one time John walked up to me, he said, you didn't do so good last week. I said, what do you mean? He said, the bar take wasn't what it should have been. And I thought, well, that's odd. So I paid a lot of attention. The next week was the same thing. So I went to, John was sitting with me having a drink. I said, John, can I ask you a question? He said, certainly. I said, you comp all our drinks here, don't you? And he said, yes. I said, what would happen if a waitress or, let's say, a patron of yours wanted to buy us a drink? He told the waitresses, I knew this because I saw it. He told the waitresses, and the waitress goes to the bartender and said, the girls want a drink, comp it, but keeps what?
Okay, yeah.
He looked at me and he said, you know what, Joann? I'd like to hire you. I became his events director, and I started booking other acts, around town and things of that sort. And I also did the voiceovers, all his commercials.
Oh, and that reminds me, I think you told me that before you guys ended your career, you were in a movie?
Oh, forgot. Yeah, we were working.
I remember that.
We were working for Sam Boyd at the Union Plaza Hotel. And I was getting this phone call all the time from 20th Century Fox. And I thought, who in the world's calling me? And I thought it was a big joke. And they kept calling. And because we worked at that time, we were working, I think, the later shift. And I said, I want to hear this phone. Phones were the old phones you picked up. And so I took the phone and a long cord, and I put it in the refrigerator and closed the door. Think, I'm not going to hear this. I'm going to sleep this morning. And I go to work. This was after about the fifth time. And my boss calls me over, the pit boss. He said, Joann, I want to tell you something. 20th Century Fox is trying to get you. I said, you're kidding. He said, no. I said, holy smoke, I've been putting the phone in the refrigerator. I said, what is it they want? Art Carney is coming to town. And he's doing a movie called Harry and Tonto. And they want you in that. They want me in the movie?
Do you have a SAG card?
Yes. So anyway, we got to do a movie. The entertainer says Art Carney is coming into the Union Plaza Hotel. The doors swing open. He's walking, and this music going on, and he finally gets to his seat, and he's still, and there we are, and he's looking up at us like this, and I'm thinking, oh my God, here we go. And
oh, that's amazing.
But no, not quite, because when we were filming it, he had that cat. Tonto was the cat, and sat on the bar stool. Every time we'd start to play, that cat jumped off the bar stool. I said, oh my God, don't do this. I looked at Ruth. I said, you heard about the cat that had 9 lives? He better have 10 if he did. I get cut. Well, they finally realized what they could do. They had us mime. We played it, and then they had us mime it. So it was
smart.
Yeah.
All right. So I also get some water. I also know that you did you dabbled a little bit in politics. Is that what I would call it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes, but I didn't know that I was going to do that. Okay, let me preface this for it, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a call from the Musicians Union one day, and they said, Joann, are you going to be home? I believe it's a Saturday around 10 o'clock. And I said, why? We're sending somebody over we want you to meet. And I said, great. I didn't even ask who. I just, anytime you asked me, there was another stage for me. So anyway, Saturday morning comes. I opened the door. It was 10 o'clock, just before 10 o'clock. They said, they'll be there at 10 o'clock. And I opened my door about 5 minutes. I'm going to go outside beforehand. All of a sudden, this was like the movies. 3 big black SUVs show up, stop dead in the middle of the street. Doors swing open, excuse me. These huge guys get out, dark glasses, and I thought, oh, what? I couldn't fathom. And you could see they had something in the earphones, and then a lady gets out, another lady, and a third lady, and they start walking up towards me, and I'm standing there like this, and the one lady says to me, younger, "Are you Joann Bongiorno?" And I said, "Yes. We would like you to meet a First Lady Rosalind Carter." I'm like, oh my God! And yeah, I could not believe what I was seeing at my front door. I thought to myself,
What year was this?
I believe it was 2006.
Okay. Oh my
Her
goodness.
son was running for a political office here, and I was like, the first thing I thought is my mother and father would never believe this, that in our house we had such a dignitary. Brings till this day, this woman was the most gracious woman I've ever met in my life.
And what did she want with you?
I'm not quite sure yet to this day. She asked me a lot, and I brought my neighbors in,
Okay.
And she asked me some questions about how I felt about certain things in education, and we chatted.
Okay.
I asked her if she'd like some tea, or she'd got to take some water, and we'd go to give her the water, and oh no, the CIA, that's what they were. These guys were located in every window and every door in my house. You walked up and they took the bottle. And he said, we'll do this later. And fine.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And then she said, we chatted about 20 minutes. And all this time, Lisa, those cars are parked out in front of my house. And she said to me as we walked out, she said, "Is that a garage sale down there?" I said, "Yeah, he does it every week." She said, "I love garage sales. You want to walk with me?" Are you kidding? We're walking in the middle of the street, right down the street, and here all the neighbors are out, and I am so proud I can't even tell you to this day.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, then.
And then you became an advocate of some program.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, well, there was a knock on my door, a similar situation. Senator Joyce Woodhouse was at my door.
Senator Joyce Woodhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And she came in, introduced me to her and her husband, told me that she would like to nominate me for what is called the, Nevada Silver-Haired Legislative Forum. Most people don't know. Yeah, I know. And I would have to do certain things. She would nominate me, but there would be no guarantee that I would be appointed. Well, I did get appointed.
And what is that?
I brought something. There is a representative of every district in Nevada that is nominated, and there must be a senator that nominates you. All right? And the forum meets, and what we are advocates for seniors.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Silver-haired. Okay.
Exactly. At first, when I first got there, I didn't know much about politics, but I learned quickly. I was there a year, became their their treasurer, and then they brought me to Carson City, and Joyce Woodhouse, Senator Woodhouse, was very, very kind. She got up and she did a lot of accolades about some of the things I had done, and it was humbling because there was no one there I knew. I mean, I was by myself. I said, my mother's not there, none of my family here, none of my friends. And when the senators stood up and applauded, I thought, I don't know if I deserve this.
You have lived such a storied, varied life. I mean, what is your philosophy at this time of your life? What is your philosophy?
It's like the poem a bird of paradise, a peasant with his plow. No, excuse me, let me go there again. It's a poet with his pen or a peasant with his plow. It makes no difference who you are. It's all the same somehow. A king upon his throne or a jester at its feet. It's a shopkeeper, the wife, the woman on the street. It's a life of smiles, a life of tears, a life of hopes and a life of fears, a blinding torrent of rain or a brilliant burst of sun, biting, tearing pain or bubbling, smiling fun. And it matters not what you may have. Don't envy those you meet, because it's all the same. It's in the game, the bitter and the sweet. And if things don't look so cheerful, show a little fight, because for every bit of darkness, there's a little bit of light. And for every bit of hatred, there's a little bit of love. And for every cloudy morning, a midnight mood of love.
You are my hero.
Hero.
You are amazing. You are such a delight, and I'm so glad that you came to visit with us today.
Thank you. You honor me.
I could sit here and talk to you for hours, but I think we need to wrap this up. And
Okay.
But you and I are going to stay friends for a long time.
I think so.
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, and I hope you all enjoyed our lovely guest today, Joann Bonn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.